Welcome back from that short break. We continue with New Vision TV News, and now we look at what's making headlines in business with Lynn Komjishe.
You're in time for In Business here at New Vision TV. My name is Lynn Komjishe. With me is Paul Bushalizi, and we continue to look at the budget analysis from 1986 up until last year. So we realized that 1987-1988 budget falls from 1.1 of 1986-1987 to 53.2 billion. That was trillion shillings.
Yes.
Now we're in a billion. What happened?
Well, I think what happened was this budget, just as this budget was being done, or shortly before this budget was being done,
okay,
they had a currency reform. And the currency reform involved removing two zeros from the currency at the time. So if you had a budget of 1.1 trillion the year before, it should be about 10 billion in this year that we're talking about. That's why the figures shifted so dramatically.
If you could shed more light on these currency reforms, I don't get it.
So I think the government wanted to achieve two things. Off the top of my head, I think government wanted to achieve two things. One, it wanted to generate revenue, taxes. How it did this was that it removed the two zeros, and then it said any liquid holdings, meaning any cash holdings, anybody holding cash in the banks or wherever, we shall tax that cash 30%. So government at once got 30% from all the monies people had. If you had, let's just, so two zeros, if you had 1,000 shillings in your pocket at the time, it became 10 shillings, and government removed 3 shillings, so they give you 7 shillings.
It still doesn't make sense.
Why not?
So you remove it, okay, I remain with 10, you take the other.
Then I tax you. It was essentially a tax of 30% on your cash.
Why were they confusing people?
No, they needed revenue. They needed revenue.
Okay.
They remember they were coming out of a war and all that kind of business. Government, the country was really broke. They needed revenue urgently.
Right.
That was one thing they wanted to achieve. Second thing they wanted to achieve was, if you reduce the number of zeros, then you can reduce the rate of growth of prices in a mechanical way. So, for example, if you have 1,000 shillings, as we said, and inflation is 30%, the thing will rise to 1,300 in whatever time period, isn't it? But if you remove the two zeros and you have 10, whereas the inflation will still raise it by 3, but it provides some comfort. Somebody is less likely to double his prices if he sees that. It's a psychological thing.
Indeed, that's why it's confusing me.
Yeah.
But we noticed that the minister also changed at that time. Then we had Minister Professor Ponciano Mulema. Now we had Dr. Crispus Chionga Kemen, and defense took the biggest share then.
Yeah, at the time, of course, what had happened is that when the NRA came into power, it swept out the old army.
Yes.
And a lot of this old army fled northwards. And after a while, after some time, they regrouped and tried to fight back, so to speak. Or as the army was trying to move, and it was an ugly time, but as the army was trying to pacify the northern area, ensued a civil war.
Yes.
And so immediately, war can't wait for other things. You have to pay for it. So imagine at the time the minister was saying, I think even it was almost about half of the budget went to the army that year.
Yes.
Crazy.
Did it help at all?
There's no war in northern Uganda today, so we can say that it was the beginnings of the end of the civil war in northern Uganda. You have to remember that when the NRA came to power, it was really an infantry force, just people walking with AK-47s. Now, to combat the army in the north, you want to increase your firepower, so the cost of new cars and all that kind of business went into the budget.
So what happened with the biggest chunk going to defense? Then how did they manage? How did the country manage?
Well, I think first of all, if you notice that the budget rose 5 times.
Yes.
So the previous year it was 10 billion, you know, okay, 1 trillion, but becomes 10 billion.
10 billion.
And now they are talking about a budget of 53 billion. So in the previous year, so you can see 5 times it's gone up. So even if the budget, even if the army took half of that, which is, let's just say 26 billion, that is twice the budget of the previous year.
Oh,
so a lot of stuff could still go on, in theory, because whatever else was sharing twice the budget of the previous year. So things went on anyway, the best way they could at the time. And in fact, in that year, the minister announced that he was going to pay 50% of the cost of primary school kids, all primary school kids, and 75 and 65% of boarding fees for kids in boarding school.
Then they had the money.
Well, you see, they've doubled. You see, they moved it from 10 billion to 50 billion. So 5 times, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
But half of it has gone to the army, which is 25 billion. But there's still 25 billion left, which is twice last year's budget. So the money was, in theory, still there.
In theory, as usual.
Yes, in theory.
And we also note that there was a slash wave of abolishing duties on a raft of essential commodities.
Yeah.
What were they trying to achieve?
Well, I imagine politics. When you've taken over government, you want to make sure people are comfortable. So you abolish taxes on soap, sugar, salt, and paraffin as a way to spur their supply. People would probably import them because there was not much local production. So it's probably just a political thing that let's just slash this so people can be comfortable. They don't be too happy, too unhappy with us. After all, we're fighting a war in the north. We don't need people down in the south
suffering,
being sad with us. Also, you know, they reduced, or I think reduced or scrapped the duties on buses, pickups, minibuses, car tires, and spares, and road construction equipment, which is very important.
If that happened today.
Oh, happy days, my friend. Happy days. Happy days.
Well, you mentioned the wavering of these essential commodities. I'm looking at how did, from 1986 to 1988, was there any economic growth? Was there any progress? Well, could we see any progress there?
It would be, I actually don't have it here. I don't know what the economy grew by, but it's suspected when it didn't grow very much, especially since inflation was still high. I think this year it was also about still the same as 240% a year, which is a doubling of prices every 3 months. Crazy.
That's interesting. Very interesting. But somehow we'll probably look at how it worked. How did the budget, you know, finally perform at the end of the financial year?
Well, now you'd have to be looking at the 86-87 budget. They had planned a budget of about, as we said, 1.1 trillion, which then should have been about 11 billion. But they ended up only not spending less, about 10 billion. They collected taxes 4.8, yet they had planned to collect about 4.8. So they weren't very ambitious the previous year, I think, with the Mulema.
I mean, they were just
still starting. As we said earlier, in '86 they even were late with the budget. It came in August. They read it in August. But you can see now they're maybe becoming surer, and they can even increase 5-fold the budget.
That's true. So
they become a bit more confident compared to the previous year.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Like I said in our previous show, please do visit our website www.newvision.co.ug for more of these budget speeches, especially from those years, and the analysis that he is doing for Vision Group. Thank you, Paul, for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lynn. In our Daily Pearl of Africa series, we look at the rocks in Bukedia district known as KAGUBALA rocks. Now, these are found in a region also called KAGUBALA. They have interesting shapes which have attracted so many people to come and look at. Let us take a look.
Eastern Uganda is one of those regions in Uganda that Uganda can say is proud of because of its uniqueness. Take the example of Bukedia district, also found in the eastern region. The district is blessed with rocky areas such as KAGUBALA, where we find some of Uganda's most high rocks, the KAGUBALA rocks. These rocks are formed in various shapes which fascinate tourists. Some have shapes of human beings, as others create imaginations of what they really look like in your brain. A rather astonishing factor is the evergreen vegetation that covers its roots. This has also favored the practice of agriculture by the locals around the area. With such crops, there is no doubt the soils here are fertile. Farming may not be the only activity practiced here, but also quarrying, as you can see a quarry at the other side of the rocky region. Animals also grace this landscape. The monkeys here jump from one top of the rock to the other, causing amusement to the onlookers. While above these rocks, you can see the Mbale to Soroti route. However, if you're leaving Uganda's capital Kampala to Bukedia district, it is about 4 to 5 hours, respective of the route you decide to take on arrival at Jinja, as portrayed on this Google map.
For more Pearl of Africa stories, visit our website, which is newvision.co.ug. You can also buy our newspaper, The Sunday Vision. It is filled with Pearl of Africa adventures. Now let us take a look at our special report today, where we look at how we lose our forests to the kitchen. In the last 25 years, Uganda has lost over 16% of the forest cover. Much of these forests have ended up in our kitchens, either as firewood or as charcoal. When the urban dwellers use charcoal, they may not be aware they are destroying the forest, but the reality is slowly kicking in as the degradation is visible in all parts of the country.
It is getting clearer now that when the urban dwellers use charcoal, they are unaware of their contribution to deforestation. Today, Uganda's forest cover is at 8%, a big drop from 24% of the country's total area in 1994. Urban areas, especially Kampala, are the major consumers of charcoal. This is where there's a high demand, which is shown in the correlation between the rise in urban population to fast rate at which forests are disappearing. In Kampala, Moses Sembalala of Mutungo, a Kampala suburb, has been trading in charcoal for 10 years. Every 2 days, he receives a truckload from upcountry, where people are cutting trees for charcoal to sell to urban centers. Referred to as black gold by Kampala traders, charcoal has become more profitable than the forests, where trees are being indiscriminately cut down to make it. For the rural population, where the last few trees and forests are remaining, charcoal trade is an opportunity to earn an income. The rural poor cut the trees to make charcoal, which traders like Sembalala sell to urban dwellers. Out of the charcoal trade, Sembalala has built a house, bought a car, and sent many children to good schools. He gets his black gold supply from northern Uganda, whose charcoal is of high quality and demand. Northern Uganda has thick forest cover comprising both of hard and softwood. Forest growth in the area flourished during the 2 decades-long Lord's Resistance Army conflict, as many locals were displaced from their villages. Last week, police raided charcoal makers in a bid to fight the trade and save trees, especially the shea tree, which is endangered. The shea tree is one of the trees that produces high-quality charcoal, which is on high demand in urban centers. Previously, Kampala charcoal traders relied on charcoal from Nakasongola, Hoima, Masindi, Luwelo, and districts in eastern Uganda. These have since been depleted of private and communal forests and contributed to the sharp decrease of Uganda's forest cover. Charcoal traders have now turned to northern Uganda. Now Langele village, adjacent to the Murchison Falls National Park in Ngoya district, in northern Uganda, known for its beautiful scenery and thick forests, is gradually bare. For long, Langele has been the charcoal factory. According to the National Forest Authority, more than 73,000 hectares of private forest are cleared every year across the country, and over 7,000 hectares of protected forest reserves are destroyed annually for timber and charcoal. According to the State of the Environment report by the Uganda National Environment Management Authority, NEMA, the rate of deforestation had by 2005 risen from 1.76% per annum to 2.13% per annum. The report says pressure on land, water, forest and biological resources has dramatically increased given a growing population, leading to a loss of 76% of the forest cover. Tony Okello Obong, the Executive Director, National Forestry Authority, says it is necessary to devise alternatives for sustainable livelihoods and to empower communities with information on the dangers of indiscriminate forest cutting. Obong says without a viable alternative source of energy, it is clear that charcoal and wood fuel will remain the dominant sources of energy. About 95% of Ugandans depend on charcoal and wood for cooking. Moreover, Uganda's rapid population growth, coupled with rapid urbanization, have increased the demand for energy, especially cooking fuel. The growth in energy demand has not been matched by a corresponding growth in supply of alternative sources of fuel, such as hydroelectricity, which is the cheapest and most convenient alternative source of energy for cooking. The uptake of gas, an alternative, is also still very low. Alternatives to charcoal include liquefied petroleum gas and hydropower. Unfortunately, costlier than charcoal and not very much available in rural areas. However, there are signs that some urban dwellers are beginning to use gas. There are investors who are making briquettes produced from agricultural waste such as coffee husks, sawdust, maize cobs or leaves, which are dried and compressed for easy handling. Briquettes are cheap. If promoted, could be an alternative to charcoal whose demand is not only in Uganda but in the East African region. Recently, the government banned the export of charcoal to Kenya. Other alternatives include volcanic stones as well as energy-saving stoves to reduce on the amount of charcoal used. With reduced consumption of charcoal, the demand for charcoal will fall, hence the number of trees cut.
For more on this special report, visit our website, which is newvision.co.ug/video. That is it we had for you from me, Ruth Inasije, and the New Vision TV team. Remember, you can get more news updates and other programs here on New Vision TV by visiting our website. You can also follow us on social media. Facebook is the New Vision, Twitter is @NewVisionWire, Instagram is @NewVisionWire, and our YouTube channel is New Vision TV. Catch up with me on my Twitter handle. I am Ruth the Voice. Now see you tomorrow, but we end with a fact file.